So today we are going to learn about how do we consume RESTful services in Xamarin Apps. This session also is divided in two parts where the first part we are going to build the RESTful service quickly, and the second part is where we are going to focus on Xamarin app, precisely using Xamarin Forms SDK to create the cross-platform applications which can run on multiple mobile platforms and with the same source code or the same code base. And that's where we are going to see how the design is created and how do we consume the RESTful web services. So this is the base agenda for today's session, where though I have not mentioned that how do we create the web API, but anyways, to build this solution, we will need a web API, which I'm planning to host on Azure as a API app, and that is what we would be consuming from the Xamarin Forms app with the help of HttpClient API. And one more feature that we are going to see here is how do we detect the network connectivity in this process. So first of all, we will quickly build the web API, and then we'll talk a bit about the Xamarin apps. Then we'll talk about the kind of applications which we can build, various options that we have to build the Xamarin based applications or mobile applications using .NET framework. And then we'll look at the implementation also. So let's move on to Visual Studio. Here I have my Visual Studio 2019 ready. I just select the create new project option here, wherein the first thing I'm looking for is ASP.NET Core Web Application using C# language. And I click on next. And here I give the name to this application as DNC underscore demo web APIs. And the location I'll select as D drive demos. Let's say create. I'll straight away select the template that is titled as API here. Let's create. Let's close this welcome page, which confirms the creation of the application. And we have the sample app ready over here. I'm looking for the API that is talking to the database and providing me some basic operations like retrieving the data and adding the data. And for that, I just right click the project and select add and then select new folder where I'm looking to create a model class. So I name this folder as models. Right click the models folder, select add, select class. Let's name this as employee. Click on add. A couple of namespaces I'll import here. System.componentModel.data annotations is the first namespace, followed by system.componentModel.data annotations.schema. And then I map this class to one of my backend database table, that is employee. So for that, I use the attribute table, wherein I say it maps to a table in the backend system where the table name is given as employees. And then I create certain properties here. Let's say the first one is ID. Second is name. I call it as full name. Next is department number. Next is manager ID. And the last one is of type double, named as salary. And then I need to annotate all these properties to map to my backend database system with validations and restrictions, whatever I'm looking for. So here I want this ID to be playing the role of primary key. I put key attribute there. I want to make it required. Full name, I don't want to be more than 50 characters in length. So I put max length 50. Department number, I want to make it mandatory. Even full name, I want to make it mandatory. So I put required. Department number also, I put it as required. Manager ID, also I put it as required. Yeah, I should have changed the types. So department number is int. Manager ID is int. This is required. And then comes the salary, where I'm not having any validation in place as such. The model class is ready for me. I want a corresponding database to be created behind scenes, and I want this service to be driven on cloud. So for that, I just open my browser. What I need to have is a Microsoft ID to log on to this portal.azure.com, where I already have an ID saketkarnik@hotmail.com that can access the portal.azure.com, and this ID has been mapped to a existing Azure subscription as well. I've set up the multi-factor authentication here, so asking for the sign-in approval. I approve it, and soon it should be logged in. I say yes, keep me logged in. And there I am. Here, the first thing I'm going to create is a resource group. So I go to resource group on left-hand side and then click on plus add, which asks me for the name of the resource group after the subscription. So my subscription is this, and I'll name this resource group as webinar-rg and region as Southeast Asia. This depends on where your audience is going to be. You have to select the nearest data center location as region. Then say next. I don't have too many resources to play around with, so I can ignore setting up the tags. I just click on next, and finally I click on create. Resource group gets created. Now I go ahead and select create resource here. And what I'm looking for is a database server as a backend to be created for me. So here I go and select SQL database option directly from the popular category, or else I can look for databases wherein I have SQL database as an option. If you want, you can actually configure MariaDB or MySQLDB or PostgreSQLDB or you can go for MongoDB, Cosmos DB, whichever the type of database you are looking for. As per your application's requirement, you can go for one. And what we are going to use is the platform as a service offering for the database here, where we are not going to have any virtual machine. We're not going to configure any virtual machine. We're not going to install any software for the database server and all. We're just going to make use of the managed service provided by the Azure platform. So here I select SQL Azure. Subscription is this resource group, should be the one that we just created by the name webinar RG. I just select that. What name of the database I'm looking for. So let's call this as company DB. And then it is asking for the server. I want to create a new one. Creating a new server doesn't mean I'm doing any installation. The installation is already there in place. I'm just looking for a named instance privately created for me. I just click on create new. And here I give a name that has to be globally unique. So let's say I call this as OIDB server. The fully qualified name will be oidbserver.database.windows.net. Server admin login needs to be created over here. So I call this as OI admin with some password. And then I select the location which I selected for the resource group. Same as that. So Southeast Asia. Click on OK. Next thing it is asking about is whether I'm looking for SQL Elastic Pool. That's a different feature altogether. Let's not get into what it is, and we'll select no here. For more information about this, you can just read the documentation of SQL Server for Elastic databases. Then comes the compute plus storage. This is something which decides how much I'm going to pay for this particular service. So here I see that there is a default selection, general purpose, generation 5, 2 virtual cores, 32 GB storage is the plan which has been selected by default. So if I want to change this, I can say configure database. Here I can see the details, how I'm going to be charged and how much I'm going to be charged. You can see on the right hand side, the cost summary is already provided. Per core 8,907.57 INR is going to be charged for us. And that's where ultimately the cost is this. So here, I don't want this much of storage as of now. I just go for looking for basic, standard, premium, within which I select basic, the most basic service which is there to play around with the initial requirements of the application. So up to a 2 GB of information I can put into this database. I just select I just click on apply, and here you can see that things have changed. Compute plus storage is basic with 2 GB storage, and then I click on next. This is an important step over here because we will be connecting from an application running on local machine as of now, or maybe remote devices. We need to give the access to the database from the local machine as well. So here I will select public endpoint as of now. This can be changed later on as well. This is more about setting up the firewall rules, whitelist and blacklist rules you create here. While when I select no access, that means I've blacklisted every single type of service there. Public endpoint means anyone can access this service from anywhere. Private endpoint means only via the virtual private networks user can connect to this service on virtual networks and then can access the service. Then we have some more additional features for this, like whether the Azure services needs to be allowed or not. So I will say, yes, I want the other Azure services to be able to access this server as my web API is going to be put on Azure and which will be talking to this server. So I need this. And I also want my current IP address to be whitelisted so that the local application can also be able to talk to this service. So I just say yes and click next. Then for data sources, I have three options. Like I can create my initial database using some sample database like AdventureWorks. I can restore some existing backup, or I can start afresh by selecting none over here. So it will create a blank database for me. Collation usually we won't be changing. And then we have some security module available here. Advanced data security module. Free trial is available for 30 days, after which you will be charged this much per server per month. Right now, I'm not looking for anything like that as I'm not going to play with some enterprise data. It is just some sample information that I'll be using. So I don't want any security module to be used. Next, I ignore the tags, say next, and finally, let's say create. Let's wait for a while. It will take around 1 minute to 2 minutes as it is right now creating a server instance, and on that it is going to create a database also. If it is only database, it will be quick. Meanwhile, we can go to Visual Studio and let's create a DAL class that provides the create, retrieve, update, delete operations. So I just right click this folder, the project, and select add new folder named as DAL. Right click DAL folder, say add class. Let's name this as company DB context. We need to use entity framework over here, and as per the .NET Core standards, all the features are available, but as separate NuGet packages. So what that means is the entity framework also needs to be installed as a NuGet package over here. So I just go to Package Manager console window, clear screen, and then I issue the command as install package Microsoft dot entity framework core dot SQL Server. As I'm going to use the SQL Server backend. Next, I import a namespace here, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core, followed by my own namespace that contains my model class. I'll say ANC demo web APIs dot models and make this class company DB context inherit from DB context base class. What this class is going to have is a property of type dbset of department type, sorry, employee type, and I'll name this as employees. Then I have the default constructor for the class, which changes to the default constructor of the base class, followed by one more parameterized constructor for this class that takes in a parameter of type db context options, named as options, changed to the parameterized constructor of the base class, where I pass in the options as is. So my DAL class is also ready. I can get both these things closed. I open my app settings.json file where I need to create the connection string configuration. So here I say comma, then double quotes, connection strings, as there can be more than one connection strings in a project. So there is a collection. The first one is represented by the key as CS, colon, there goes the value. So let's say it is server equals to something which I'll get from the portal. Database equals to company DB, as that's the name we have given to the database while creating it. Then comes user ID equals OIadmin. That's what we gave while creating the server instance. And then comes the password, which I gave as this. So what is pending here is the server name. Let's go to the portal and see if the deployment is complete. Yes, it is. I'll just click on go to resource. And on this landing page, here I can see the server name, the fully qualified one. So I just use this copy to clipboard button to copy the server name and paste it over here for the server value. Save this file, close it, and then we go to startup.cs, wherein we need to import a couple of namespaces. First one is Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. Second is my own namespace that is having the DAL class. So DAL. Then I go to configure services, where I need to inject my company DB context application class as a dependency here. Here, this iService collection is representing the IOC container, wherein I'm going to register my company DB context class as a dependency. So I can straight away say services dot add DB context, the generic method wherein I can pass the type parameter as my company DB context class like this, which says that here I'm registering a service of type company DB context, and this method takes in a parameter of type action, which is a delegate that depends on a method that takes in a parameter of type DB context options builder. So while implementing this, I use the Lambda expression syntax, and where I give the parameter name as builder, which is by default inferred as DB context options builder here. Then the arrow function implementation, which is basically used for the lambdas. It is pronounced as builder goes in. Builder dot use SQL server, where the use SQL server method is looking for a connection string name or the connection string itself. As we have put it into the config file, it's better to retrieve it from there by the name. And for that, I'll use this configuration API already discovered from the IOC container with the help of the constructor-based dependency injection. So here we go and say configuration dot get connection string. We need to give the name of the connection string here, which we have given as CS. Save this, build the whole application to see all well. Succeeded. Now I go to Solution Explorer. I want my API to be built here. So I just right click on controllers and select add, select controller. Here I straight away select API controller with actions using entity framework. And what this is going to do is it is going to create my web API straight away. So let's click on add. Asking for the model class based on which the API is going to be built. So I select employee class as the model class, data context as company DB context, and controller name I'll modify for my understanding as employees API controller. Reason behind that is my application may have some regular MVC controllers also. Let's click on add. So our API is ready. Okay. Now, in order to test this API, first I'll just use Control F5 key combination that is run without debugging. By default, it launches the sample API, weather forecast. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in my own API that is available at API/employees API location and press enter. Yeah, so here just focus on this. It says invalid object name employees because it is looking to generate a query, select asterisk from employees, and our database doesn't have that table created as yet. So that is why this exception came in. No worries. What we will do is close this tab, come back to the Visual Studio, go to Package Manager console, clear screen, and let's try adding Entity Framework Code First Migration, which will by default read the schema of the model object that we have created here. And with the help of this, it will try to generate a table in the backend database by this name, where the column names will be these and the corresponding data types will be chosen. So for that, I go back to Package Manager console. And the command that I use over here is add-migration and the name of the migration. As this is going to be just the initial setup, I name this migration as initial setup. What this migration means, see if there is some model in your application whose mapping doesn't exist into the backend database. Read the schema of that model, which it has done. It has found that there is a model named as employees. whose table mapping doesn't exist in the backend database. Hence, it has automatically created the C# script for creating the table named as employees with this column definition. And here you can still see the data types which are being used are .NET types only. Behind scenes in the database, it will automatically convert to the database specific types. So for example, the string max length 50 will be translated to nvarchar 50. Int will be int, double will be double, as the database supports that. Primary key constraint being created, and then there is a method down. If this migration is removed, in that case, drop table statement will be carried out and which will delete this employees table. This is not sufficient. This is just a script generation which it has done. Just close this file and go to package manager console again and say update database, which will in turn read that script and execute it by translating it to SQL script and finally getting the table created for me. So which we can see actually on the portal as well on Azure. So I'll go to the browser. Here I have a tool called as Query Editor. I just click on that, asking for login. User ID it has already taken, so I just give the password and click on OK. And here on the left hand side, I expand tables where I see employees table already created. You can see the corresponding data types that have been used here. If I want, I can try querying this table. Select asterisk from employees, dbu.employees. In fact, run it. It says query succeeded, affected row 0. There is no data into the table. I want to add some sample data from here itself. So I just right click this table and select edit data preview. As it's a preview feature, there is a disclaimer coming. I need to select this checkbox and click on OK so that the data editor will be automatically displayed. Here we have an option for creating the new row. I click that. ID is auto number by default, so I just keep it blank. Full name I give over here. And save. See, the ID is automatically generated as it's an identity column. I create another row. Click save. One more record I'll put. And a couple of more records I'll put here now. And one more. Click save. So my sample data is ready. Just close this. Maybe we can keep it open for the future reference, in fact, and come back to Visual Studio here. And once again, use Control F5 combination. remove the weather forecast from here and put API slash employees API here and press enter. So I can see the data coming up. Okay. The post, put, delete operations I cannot test from the browser. I need the specialized tools for that, like Postman or Fiddler or Firebug or something like that, which is right now beyond the scope of this session. So we'll not get into that. Directly from within our application, we'll try out the post operation. Okay, so the API is ready. The backend service is ready. And now I want my mobile application to be created. Okay, so I'll just close this tab. This I'll keep open for the future reference. And this is one of my application. Now, before I proceed with the mobile application development, what I want is this API to be publicly available across the world. And for that reason, I want this API to be hosted on Azure. So for that, I just go back to Solution Explorer, right click this project and say add, in fact, publish. Giving me some targets like whether I want to publish this item on Azure or on Docker Container Registry. Modern development is happening in Docker containers and all. So that's where this can come handy. Then whether I want to publish it locally on my machine in a folder. Then if I'm looking to deploy my application to an FTP server or IaaS server, or I just want to import some already created profile, which already has got the details about how and where I want to deploy, and I'm looking for a one-click deployment. So then I go for import profile, where I need to select the XML file that contains the profile, deployment profile. So now I'm selecting Azure, click on next. There I have again 5 options: Azure App Service, Windows-based, Azure App Service, Linux-based, Azure App Service Container, or Azure Container Registry, or Azure Virtual Machine. If I go for this, it will create a new virtual machine within which I will be hosting my application, which represents infrastructure as a service solution, which I'm not interested in as of now. I'm looking for platform as a service solution totally, where I don't want to create any VM. I don't want to configure VM. I don't want to install any software. I just want the platform to provide me all the required things. So for that, platform as a service I'm looking for. So these 4 options represent that. My application has not been built for the containers. Hence, these 2 options I cannot use. Now I have 2 options left: App Service, Windows App Service, Linux. I can go for any one of them, as I've built my web API using .NET Core framework, and .NET Core framework works seamlessly on Windows as well as Linux. So for now, I'll just select App Service Windows and click on next. Here it has automatically detected my account, which has got my subscription because I'm logged into the Visual Studio with the same account. And then the subscription visible here. My resource group should also be visible here. Unfortunately, it's not showing because there is no app service deployed in that resource group named as webinar RG. So no issues. What we will do is we'll create the app service deployment right from here. We have the option create a new Azure app service. So let's select this. This is the name it is taking. So the name of the project followed by the timestamp is what the name it takes, as this name needs to be globally unique, because this will automatically be created as a subdomain in an existing domain called as azurewebsites.net, and which is publicly exposed. And that's why it needs to be publicly unique. So that's the reason why it appends the timestamp as the suffix to my project name. So I'm good with that. That's my subscription. The resource group that I'm looking to use is webinar RG. And then comes the hosting plan, which talks about for this application, how much I'm going to pay for the infrastructure that I use. So here I select new against hosting plan. Here my location is Southeast Asia, and then the size. I will go for free tier as of now, so that my application will be hosted successfully without paying anything, which gives me 60 minutes of compute time within a 24-hour period. So as of now, this is just a demo app, so this is going to be good for me. I just select OK and click on create. Now this dialog is communicating with my Azure account and creating an app service deployment for me by the details which I have given over here. And once the creation is successful, it by default gets a published profile downloaded and returns to the previous screen. Done. I'll just select this and click finish. My published profile is ready here. Automatically, it has determined that my application is communicating with a SQL database. If I want to change the connection string or something, maybe while developing, I might be using a local database, and while deploying, I might want to connect to the Azure database. So that's where it provides me an option. As while developing itself, we have connected to Azure database, and which is what we want to continue with. I will not go for configuring this. I'll just click on publish directly. So as my application doesn't have too many things into it, it should be quickly done with the publish activity. And straight away launches the URL here. This is okay because this is not a front-end application. It just contains some APIs. So I can check by giving my own route, that is /API/employees API. If this gives me the JSON data, my API is healthy, up and running. Okay, so this URL, I'll get copied in a notepad window. In our client application, we are going to need this. I just close the tab. And now let's talk about the mobile applications. Okay, now why we have built this web API? Any idea? Anybody? You can use your chat box. Why the web API? Not just because the topic is about consuming the RESTful service. There must be a reason why the topic has been kept like that, right? So yes, anybody? In what scenarios the mobile application would like to talk to the RESTful services or backend services? Okay, so I got one answer here, getting data from DB. That's right. Another answer is apps are lightweighted and requires API to connect to DB. So almost the same thing. Can be consumed by any application. Okay, multiple clients. Security is important thing, as we may not want our database to be exposed directly to a mobile application. So we might want the encapsulation layer, and that's where the web API can help us, which can further be secured with the help of JWT tokens. And in fact, another layer of security can be added with the help of API management or API gateways, right? So security definitely is there. And another important point someone said that is the applications are supposed to be lightweighted because ultimately the apps are going to run on the handheld mobile devices with not too many resources available, right? So you cannot have a complete business application with all the business logic written into it and running locally on your mobile device. So because of the less resources available and because of the security reasons also, you may not want all the logic to be running locally. And that's where the services communication is going to be important. So now what you write into your web API, it all depends on your requirement. In my case, I have just put the database interaction. In your case, it can have a complex business logic. It can be a simple calculator stuff also, adding two numbers, subtracting two numbers, something like that. It all depends on your application's need. Do you get that? You talk about the kind of applications over here. You might be having the applications that are represented that are actually representing the games. You might have some social media based apps like WhatsApp, Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, Instagram, and so on. You might have some apps that are basically collecting data and storing somewhere, storage apps, right? You may have some business applications which are performing some business logic. Sometimes it's only logic, sometimes it is logic plus database interaction, whatever it is. Just try to think about any application that has got absolutely no connection to the internet. There could be some, but most of your applications will need the network connectivity, internet connectivity in some of or the other form. There could be a logic which can run independently without internet locally on the device, some lightweight stuff. But then for data interaction, it might need to communicate with the service which is running somewhere remotely and where the connection is being established with the help of internet. Right, so that's what our focus area is going to be. So let's start with writing the mobile application, which ultimately communicates with the web API that we have built. Two operations mainly we are focusing on in this demo. The first operation is reading the data, what we have got put over here, and the second operation where we are looking to add more records to this particular table. So I'll start another Visual Studio instance here. We'll take a new project. Here, using the filters box, I select C# as my choice of language. Platforms I'll keep as all platforms, as I'm looking for a cross-platform mobile application. Same code base should be available for iOS or Android or for iPad OS or for Wear OS, whatever it is. Here I select mobile in the third box as I'm looking to create a mobile application. And here I select mobile app Xamarin Forms. If I'm looking to have only and only Android application to be created, in that case, I'll select Android app. If I'm looking to create only iOS app, iOS app is the template. If I'm looking to create Android Wear app, I have this template. If it is watchOS app, that is again from Apple, I will select this. But if I'm looking to create one single application that can be used across the devices, across the platforms, I'll select Mobile App Xamarin Forms, where the same code base for UI and the same code base for the backend code can be shared across the different implementations. So my investment in terms of developing the application is going to be there only once. Maintainability of that application will be high. The moment I update my app, it will be providing the updates to my Android as well as iOS users at the same time. The third platform which is supported here, you can see, is Windows. So what that means is UWP apps are also supported here. Universal Windows Platform is what I'm talking about. So I just select this and click Next. I name this app as Xam underscore demo Xamarin Forms. Location is the demos. Let's click on Create. I'll select the template as blank as of now, and you can see here what all target platforms you can actually go with. So for now, as I am not targeting iOS, I can just uncheck this, though I'm not going to do that. I will show you that iOS application is also built. For trying out the iOS application, even for using the simulator, you will need the Apple device, either the iPhone or iPad or Mac machine, right? Because the build agent is provided by those devices only. But still, at least we will be able to see that application getting generated here, getting built over here. Only the deployment and running part of iOS implementation will not be able to see. Right, so let's click on create. If I select this Windows UWP, it will build the same application for Universal Windows Platform also, where the UI and the code for the application will be common across all the three platforms. So here is the application created. You can see the structure. I have three projects created over here. One is with the name that we have given. This is where our code base will lie. The UI will be based on the XAML language, which used to be there for WPF and Silverlight and for UWP applications only. But now Xamarin makes use of XAML to allow us to create the UI for Android as well as iOS, and which will be the native UI. The point is this UI gets translated to the platform specific UI for Android and for iOS behind scenes. And these are the two projects representing the Android implementation and iOS implementation, where I just need to do some settings about like whatever the image files or audio video files, if I'm using some media stuff, if I'm using, that goes in assets or resources folder in both of these projects. Beside that, at the application level, I don't need to do anything into these two projects, right? So this one will be pushed to Android. This one will be pushed to iOS, either the app stores, respective app stores, or if you have got the direct device connectivity physically, you can push your application directly on your physical devices also. So this is our work area where we are going to put our things. Looks pretty much similar to that of the WPF applications. It has got the app.xaml just like WPF, which is the entry point representing the application class, and which has got its own code behind as well. So here you can see the app class inheriting from application. Here goes the constructor setting up the main page. And then there are some application level events on start, on sleep, on resume. And then you have the main page. XAML has got some sample stuff into it and the code behind as well. So here I'll just go to a tool. Android Device Manager. This you will get if while installing Visual Studio, you have selected the mobile development payload also. By default, you will get this Android Device Manager. And apart from this, you have another tool that is Android SDK Manager. If I go to SDK Manager here, I can see what all SDKs are available. The list shows everything, all the SDKs which have been released till date, right from version 1.6 donut to Android 11.0 R. That is the latest one. As of now, I have got only 2 SDKs installed because I'm targeting my applications to these 2 platforms only as of now. So only these 2 selected here. And based on this, the Android Device Manager allowed me to create the emulator for testing the Android application. So here I've got one device created, Google Pixel 2, based on Android Pie 9.0 with the SDK API version 28. If I want to create more emulators, I can just click on new. And here I can select which device I want, which platform I want. So it could be Pixel 3 or 3A XL, whichever one. Processor architecture that I'm looking to target, x86, it's x64 or ARM processor, whatever it is. Okay, so that's how I have created my emulator. Okay, and this is what I have. So I'll just click on start button over here to get my emulator ready. Say okay. Here comes the emulator wherein it's simulating the Google Pixel 2 device. Soon we'll see the device starting prompt here. So there it comes. I can close this device manager window. Meanwhile, all basic functionality you have here. And this back button and app manager button and home button and close button, everything you have here as well, apart from the device itself. So there it starts. Okay, I'll just move this aside. And what I'm looking for is this application to be deployed to that emulator and do something for me. Just show whatever the contents are there. So I can say F5 here or just click this button. So this will build the application. This will package the application as APK, which is for Android, and something similar called as app package for iOS, and deploys to the respective devices the moment you hit the play button. This time the iOS stuff will not be carried out. Reason, we don't have any Apple device connected to my machine as of now. If it is connected, it will do the deployment for that device as well. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. First time, it's little time consuming because the packaging and deploying is done right from the scratch. It also checks all the dependencies on the target device, which version, which SDK version you have targeted, what runtime is required. If it is missing, it actually goes ahead and deploys all those dependencies as well. So hence it takes little extra time. Yeah, so here is one question. If we are on a Windows machine, how we can deploy it on iOS device? Just by connecting it to Windows machine or laptop? Uh, yes, actually, you just need to have a remote connection to your iPhone or iPad or maybe Mac. If it is Mac, actually, it will be coming up with a similar emulator like this, representing your iPad or iPhone, and then the process is pretty much the same. As your emulator runs actually on the Mac machine, the deployment happens on Mac machine only. And for that, you have to actually have the communication established between your Mac machine and the Windows machine. Windows machine will be your development box, and the Mac machine will be actually the build server, build and deployment server. Is it fine? It should be finished anytime soon. As I can see the message deploying to so and so device. The progress bar also seems to be 100%. Okay, there is some tooling issue over here. There is a service called as hot reload for XAML, which is not working on my machine as of now. What this service actually does is it allows you to keep your application running while editing your XAML design, I mean the UI. And the moment you save that change, automatically your UI gets refreshed onto your device. So that's what the service which is not working for some reason I need to find out. To make this work, I'll just say Control F5 now, that is run without debugging. So it should do the deployment and launch the application straight away. So here it goes. In the emulator, it looks like it is loading the application, and there it is. So this is the default content which is coming up over here. Okay. And then I want to make some changes over here. The first part I want to keep as it is. Few changes though I'll do here. It's not welcome to Xamarin Forms. It is just Xamarin Forms demo. And font size I'll reduce to say 24. And all this remaining stuff, the three labels which we have, I'll get it removed, save, and once again say Control F5. So this is where actually that XAML hot reload comes handy. So there I can see that change has taken place and the additional sample stuff also has been cleaned up. Now let's do our own implementation here. So for that, I'm going to use a little bit of MVVM stuff. And in fact, for the interaction with the web API that we have created, I would be needing a copy of the model class as well here. So in the XAML demo Xamarin Forms project itself, I add a new folder named as models. Right click this models folder and say add class employee. What I'll do is I'll go to my previous project and we'll open the department class here, employee class over here. Copy this entire class definition and back into the current application where I paste it. I remove all the attributes though. I don't want them at the client side. Even if you keep them, that's okay. No harm in that. I just want clean code right now. That's why I'm removing it, so as to avoid any confusion. So that's my model class that I've created first. Save. Next thing that I put here is another class as a view model. As I said, I'm going to use a little bit of MVVM stuff here. So I right click this project and add a new folder by the name view models. And in this folder, then I say right click, add class by the name main page view model, as this view model is going to be specifically for the main page that we already have in place. Though we have not put anything on that as yet, but once this view model is ready, we'll go ahead and modify the main page view also. So let's add namespaces we are going to need here. First one will be XAML demo Xamarin Forms dot models. Next is newtonsoft.json. I need to install this package though, so for now I'll just remove this. There is automation available which we will be using. Then I go for system.collections.object model to provide me the observable collection class and iObserver interface. Then I go for component model, system.component model. I'll be using HttpClient class for web API communication. So for that, I'll need system.net.http as the HTTP request I'm going to create, and in return, HTTP response I'm going to receive. I'm also going to need a compiler service feature for which I'll use system.runtime.compiler services namespace. And then the most important one, Xamarin.forms for the interaction with the UI. I make this class public and I make this implement I notify property changed interface. Let's hover on this interface, and here with the helper we have the option for implement interface. Let's do that. Just one member there in the interface, that is the event property changed, got introduced here. And then we need a method which can help us raise this event when required. So I say protected virtual void on property changed, which takes in a parameter of type string, name as property name. By default, the value is null. And what I want is the property name to be automatically set over here without me giving it explicitly. That's where I'm going to use the compiler services feature. So here there is an attribute called as caller member name, which I'll use. So whoever calls this method, that entity's name will automatically be assigned to property name. Here I say property changed, event is raised. So I use question dot operator, which means if null, then null. If not, then proceed with dot and say invoke. Where I pass the current object for sender, and for property changed event args, I say new property changed event args, whatever the property name that has come in as a parameter to this method. Let's save. Then I have a property defined over here. In fact, a data member defined over here for navigation service. So I say public iNavigation is the type, and I name this property as navigation, which has got get and set both type of implementations. I'm looking for auto implemented property. And then I have an observable collection of employee as employees. And then I have a wrapper property for this. So here we go and say public observable collection of type employees named as employees, which has got get returns employees, the data member, and then we have set block, which says employees equals to value and raises the property changed event. So just say on property changed. See, on property change is taking in property name. I'm not passing because this is where the on property change name is being called by this property. This name is automatically going to be passed. Now the advantage of that caller member name is tomorrow if I change this name to something else, I don't need to make changes anywhere else. By default, it is considered. Then I have the constructor for this class. Okay, before proceeding, we'll need a small change in app XAML in the constructor of the app class here. And that change is where I say main page equals to not directly the new main page, rather it's a new navigation page that allows me back forward services using the model dialogues and all. Okay, I can use that history kind of behavior like browser. So that's how modern applications will be built now, giving me single page application behavior. So I put this, I can close this app XAML, CS and app XAML also. We will not require this anymore. And now we are back into main page view model class. So the next thing that I'm going to need here is the constructor for the class, which takes in a parameter of type iNavigation for discovering the navigation property. I say it is named as navigation, and here I say this dot navigation equals navigation, where the navigation property is defined over here. And then the interaction with the backend service. So here I have a method public look for the implementation as a saying, because I'm going to communicate with the web API, which may take some longer time if data is huge. I name this as get employees, which will in turn talk to the backend web API that gives me the list of employees. So here I say where URI is equals to the URI that we have copied in Notepad. So let me go to the Notepad, copy this URI, paste over here. And then I say where result is equals to await. I need to dispatch the call with the help of this client object, which is of type HttpClient. In fact, I missed that client object creation. I just cut this, and here I go for deterministic garbage collection for HttpClient. That's a better option. So I'll say where using where client is equals to new HttpClient, and here I paste that code. So here now I can say await client dot get string async, as the JSON data is actually string only, and that can be then deserialized to actual object. So that's what the next thing that I'll do. So here I say where employee list is equal to JSON convert, which is a class in Newtonsoft. I put control dot here. The helper comes, and where I by default get the automation for installing the package newtonsoft.json. I just go here and select find and install latest version. It will automatically install the latest version of newtonsoft.json and will import that as well. And then I say dot deserialize object of type list of type employee from the result that we have got in the previous statement. And then I want the actual list as an observable collection. So here I say the employees list what is the name we have given here? Employees, just employees. So I say employees is equals to new observable collection of type employee based on the employee list object that we have got in the previous statement. Now, because it's a application that communicates with the web, Sometimes I need to refresh the application also. You might have seen most of the mobile applications now these days support refreshing the UI by just pulling the application down and releasing it. So for that, I'm going to have a property created over here just before this method. Full, tap. The data type of this property is bool, named as is refreshing, and then the name of the property itself is refreshing, just to keep a check when it is getting refreshed. And then the set block, apart from setting the value to the is refreshing data member, also raises the property changed event. So I say on property changed, it's called here. Okay, this is for two-way data binding. If the UI is not notified that the backend data has changed, the data binding will not work the way we want. Okay, so now here in get employees, I'll say is refreshing is set to false. Once I've downloaded, I'll set it to false. And whenever the pull down event is raised, is refreshing is set to true. Now to handle this refresh stuff, I will have one of the MVVM feature, that is command, that I'll be using here. So I say there is a command object, so public command, refresh data is a property name, and the type of the property is command, wherein I say only get block is there. The code which we have here is return a new instance of command class. I will use lambda expression here. As you can see, it is asking for the action delegate. So the parameter list goes in. Just need to recall the get departments function here. Get employees function here. Which is this one that we have created here. Okay, so that is refresh data command. Let's save this. And let's get back to main page.xaml. We need to create some design which will be allowing us to show the data that we have just downloaded. Just below this frame, I'll create another container that is stack layout. Allows me to put the elements, the UI elements one by one in one direction. Default direction is vertical, so I don't need to set anything else. As for mobile devices, usually we would like to have the vertical view only. So what I have here is a list view component where I set its item source property for data binding. And in XAML, the binding is done with the help of markup extension binding. I'm looking to bind to employees property, which we have created in the view model. I want to handle the command in fact, I want to allow the user to pull the UI to refresh the view. So I'll say is pull to refresh enabled as true. Then I want to bind the property is refreshing. Here I say binding is refreshing. Is another property that we have created in the view model. And then the refresh command I'll select. So refresh command also is bound with the help of binding markup extension, the name of the command. So we have created that with the name refresh data. Let's complete the stack, which generates the end tag also. And then I want to have a template which decides how the data will be displayed into this list view. So here I configure list view dot item template property, which is like a canvas, blank canvas in our hand, where we can go and put anything which represents our data. So it has to be an instance of data template here. So I say data template. What it has got is a view cell object that allows us to put the UI looking as a cell in a table. Here I have stack layout again, as couple of properties I'm going to put here. I say padding equals to 4 and then a series of labels. So first label, which has got text property set to a markup extension binding. So for that, I need to refer to this. I want full name, department number, manager ID, and salary to be displayed. So binding full name is the first thing. I want some string formatting also over here. So I say string format is equals to only value of full name should not be displayed, but I want some labeling also for that. I'll say full name colon placeholder that is represented by curly brace 0. So where the actual value of full name will be appended. I want this label's text color property to be set to black. I want its font attributes to be set to bold. And I want its font size to be medium. So that's my first cell. I'll copy this here. There are total 4 data members. Department number, manager ID, and salary also are there. So what all changes here is department number. The text is department hash for department number. Text color here I want as green. I don't want font attribute here to be set, so normal font with font size medium. In fact, this is what I'll copy for the rest of the two. Eat, paste, and paste again. So that I just need to change the name of the property. So manager ID followed by salary. Okay. Now, though we have given the binding for the fields, we have not yet instantiated our view model class anywhere, and we have not added it to the binding context anywhere for this page. So I go to the backend, main page.xaml.cs, where in the constructor, I set binding context property equal to new main page view model, namespace automatically imported. You can do other way around also. And I need to pass the navigation property over here as the parameter, as we have modified the constructor there for main page view model to receive iNavigation data member. And then here I override an existing method from the base class. So override, the name of the method is on appearing. Remove this base dot on appearing, wherein I say this dot binding context as main page view model wrapped into the parenthesis dot get employees. This is where actually from view model it is calling the get employees method, and what are the values are returned that will be bound over here to the binding context. So get employees method when called, what it is doing, if you see, get employees is setting up the employees property. Here is the employees property that we have defined, which is observable collection of employee. And in main page XAML item source, we have bound the same. So it will automatically be able to get the data. Okay. So time to test this. Let's say Control F5. Almost done. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can ask. So there is the application getting launched. And there comes the data. So probably the padding is something which we should increase as some overlapping seems to be happening. It should have done it automatically though. Okay, you can see some hidden part is there. The green part is actually displaying the department number and all. We try increasing the padding. It's a stack layout, so overlapping shouldn't have happened. Okay, I have got a question here. Any tutorial that you know or material that you have to study both Xamarin and Web API? You can actually look for the official documentation from Microsoft on both of these for Web APIs and Xamarin. Okay. Let me put padding as. Now a little bit visible, but not clearly. Let's reduce the font size to small. Possibly the resolution issue on my machine. As without the screen sharing, it is showing fine. One last time we will try this. Even if department number is visible, at least we will be able to see something. Yeah, sure. I'll be sharing this demo. I'll be uploading this to my OneDrive and my colleague will be sharing this out. Okay, there is another question. Can the UI layout be made dynamic based on API URI passed as parameter? Yes, definitely you can. But in that case, the XAML you have to generate dynamically, which will be a tedious process. Rather than that, if you use the templating in XAML, that will be much more useful. As a user control, if you have the XAML created and based on the parameter, you select the right user control, that's the right way of doing it. Is it fine, Asher? Okay, so at least the department number is visible. Rest of the data is also there. Just because of the resolution issues, it's not showing up every time, but that can be made better by just adjusting these things later on. So let's not waste time in that. Let's move on to see how do we add data from here. Okay, so for that, I will create one more view model for adding the employee data. So here goes the view model folder. I right click on that. I say add class. named as add employee view model. This also comes up with a class add employee view model, where I say implement I notify property changed interface. So if I double click on that pop-up, it automatically imports the namespace required. Then I hover on it, and here I say implement the interface, just like what we did earlier. And from the previous view model class, what I'm going to do is copy this on property changed method. Okay. Let's resolve the namespace for this caller member name to compiler services, system.runtime.compiler services. And then what I have here is iNavigation service like this. Copy this, paste it here. iNavigation namespace needs to be imported, so that is Xamarin.forms. Here I define an instance of employee class. So employee. I encapsulate this. In fact, I could have done this way. Prop full. This is of type employee, named as employee, and the property itself is named as. Okay, I'll keep it that way. Just the data member employee is there. Then I have the different fields that we have created over here: full name, department number, manager ID, salary. For them, as a view model member, I need to have a representation. So here we go for a prop full string name with property name as name with F capital. Get is fine. Set I improvise from the default implementation, where I say cut this and put a check if value is not equal to null, kind of a input validation. Dname equals to full name equals to value, and then call on property changed. Same thing I'll need for department number. So maybe what I can do is just copy this, paste, and make changes. This is department number. This is department number with capital D. And this is department number. This is department number as well. I'll need this for manager ID as well. Again, paste. This is manager ID. This is manager ID with M capital. And then manager ID here, here, and done. And finally, I need this for salary also. So this is salary. This is salary with S capital, then salary here, and done. Then I have to have a constructor for this class. So here we go. We have a parameter here of type I navigation named as navigation, and the other parameter is employee. In fact, not required. If you are looking for edit operation, then this will be needed. So what I do here is I just say navigation, this dot navigation equals to navigation and then I need to have some properties for providing the commands for save operation. So there we go, and say property of type command named as save employee. We'll need to have only get operation here. So let's get rid of the set. Get, I'll expand to some of my custom implementation where I say it is returning new command object, not a new thing. In the previous view model also we have seen this. Sync lambda expression I'm using that goes in, complete the method body there, and my code goes inside this. So here I say employee equals to new employee with full name equals to the local property full name. So I can say this dot full name. This should work as well. Or if this is creating the confusion, we'll go the standard way. As the names are same with same case, it may be confusing. So we'll go with the older style. Employee dot full name equals full name. Employee dot department number equals department number. Employee dot manager ID equals manager ID, and employee dot salary equals salary. Department number, it should be able to see. Oh yeah, so the return types I have not changed there. That was my mistake. Copy paste. So I'll just say this is double, this is double. Manager ID is int. And here, department number is also int. Here and here. Oh yeah. So for ints, this check will not be there. I'll say value is not equal to 0 or greater than 0 else. If it is greater than 0, allow the stuff. Here as well, it is greater than 0, allow the stuff. And finally, for salary also, I'll say if it is greater than 0, allow the stuff. Manager ID can be 0 as well, so I'll say greater than equal to. Okay. Next, the communication with the backend service happens here. So I say string URI is equals to that same web API URI. I'll take it back from Notepad. Then there goes HTTP client. Equals new HTTP client. String JSON data. As I'm going to receive JSON, I'll say JSON convert dot serialize object employee. Whatever the data I've collected in employee has to be converted to JSON that is assigned to the string JSON data. And I say string content is equal to new string content what goes in is JSON data, the encoding. I'll say encoding is UTF-8. With the help of encoding class, I can say dot UTF-8 is the value, comma, the media type, that is application as JSON. Just like the content type we set in jQuery or Ajax, Angular, React, etc. Then comes HTTP response message. As we are now going to dispatch the call to the web API, I'll say response pulse await client dot post async. Directly we have the method post. Likewise, you have put async and delete async as well. So if you're looking to have the edit and delete functionality also, you directly have the methods there. Here I pass URI, comma, content. That is there in the string content format. Now just a simple if statement to check whether the call was successful or not. If every RESTful service comes up with a HTTP status code back at the client side. So that's what I'll check, status code. For create operation, the status code is 201, represented by HTTP status code enum with the direct value as created. Right? I don't need to remember the number. Here I say await navigation dot pop async from wherever we redirected. We'll go back there. Something like response dot redirect. Else I just want to stay here only. So I leave it empty. So that's my save employee command. view model is ready. I need to create the view for this. So here we go to Solution Explorer, right click on the project, Xamarin Forms, and select Add, New Item. I'll look for Content Page. That's what I'll select. I'll name this as Add Department. This is where I'll be navigating to from main page after clicking on a button. And how it looks is like, okay, let's get rid of this label. Stack layout I'm looking for. Padding also I'm looking for as 10. I have a label with text is equals to full name with text color as black, size as small. Then I have an entry box where the text property is going to be bound with binding extension to full name property. There is a property horizontal options, which I'll set to fill and expand. So auto size basically is the behavior. And then there is a placeholder watermark basically full name. And I'll copy these two things. Once for department number, then for manager ID, then for salary. And let's make the changes. This is department number. This is department number property. Number. Then goes manager ID. And same label stuff goes in. Placeholder here. Then the last thing is salary. And then I need to have a button for save operation. So I say button whose text is set to save, save employee, whatever you want. Command is bound to save command. So save employee command. Okay. And then little bit of backend code for this. So I'll just say F7 to switch to its code view. And in the constructor, I'm just going to set binding context. So again, not a new thing. We have seen this before. New add department view model. That takes in navigation property. Resolve the namespace. Yeah, it's add employee view model. Resolve the namespace for this. Done. And one last thing now that we need over here is in the main page, XAML.cs. In fact, main page XAML. we need to have a button added which allows me to go to the other view. So just before the list view, I say there's a button with X colon name as btn add employee. That's the identifier, followed by text as add employee, followed by command as something that binds to a backend command called as add employee. We have not created this yet. So for this reason, we'll go to main page view model once again, and there we'll add the command for add employee. We can add it anywhere. So as we have one command already mentioned here, maybe after that or before that, we can put this. So I create a property of type command by the name add employee. Add just this. I won't be looking for set. I just need get here. And here goes my return statement. Return new command. Empty parenthesis goes in the method body. Return multiple lines. Single statement goes here. That is navigation dot push async new add employee. Oh yeah, I made a mistake here. The XAML file itself I renamed. I named wrong, so I'll just rename that. It should not have been a department. Usually I use the department class, so that's a habit. I'll just rename this to add employee. That's why it was not getting resolved. Renamed. In XAML also, I'll rename this to add employee here, and its backend also I'll change to add employee as a constructor is as well. And then in main page, this should come in. Add employee navigation property going in as the only parameter. Okay, we don't need the parameter in fact, so I'll just change that. Add employee. Let's build this. Oh, it's not able to locate. I've taken it. Just try rebuilding it. Probably because of renaming, there is some issue here. Still the error. Let me see if there is some issue in the markup. Let me build again. Oh, main page also is failing. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't complete that tag, so probably that was the issue. So completed and rebuild. I hope now there should not be any issue. It's here. This is also properly done. Yeah, succeeded. Let's say Control F5. Data should come shortly. There it is. Just click on Add Employee. You can see it moves to the next page, and here I have the back button as well. I give the full name, department number, manager ID, and then salary. And there I have the save button. I click on save. Once successful, it comes back to the main view. And here I can see the record is also added. And if we go to the portal now, here I just need to click on refresh to see the new record added. Okay. So likewise, if you want, you can further take this application ahead to give the facility of editing the existing record, deleting the existing record, and so on. Just like post async, you have put async and delete async methods also in place, provided by HttpClient class. And the same thing can be used over here. Okay, so that is it for this session. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Just unsharing my screen and pasting the URL for the feedback for this session. Request all of you to fill the feedback. Just check your chat box. The feedback link is there. Hardly it will take 1 minute, not more than that. Please do fill the feedback form. And meanwhile, if you want, you can proceed with the questions. I hope you have liked the session. You can use your microphone also now. So what we have seen in this session is how do we build the web API and how do we consume that web API using Xamarin Forms SDK, which is a cross-platform framework for building the native mobile applications with the common code base for different mobility platforms, iOS, Android, and UWP, all the major platforms covered. Again, requesting kindly fill the feedback. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.